Hello, everybody, and welcome to Angel Meadows, a conversation with friends. My friends this evening was, well, I got a 2-for-1 deal. I was supposed to just have Patrick, but we are blessed with having his beautiful wife with us, Miss Tina. Yay! There's no sound effects here, so I'm it. Okay. So when I want to get a really good dish, Tina, you will be chiming in and telling us if he's fibbing or not. So, Patrick, tell everybody who doesn't know you a little bit about yourself.
Well, what can I say, really? I write poetry. I've self-published a couple of books. That was just out of frustration. I've been waiting for, it must be nearly 5 years now for an original book on the fairies to be published by Gal Press in America. So earlier this year, I got fed up and I published 4 or 5 myself. I've been a tarot reader since I was 12. Tina, you mentioned the reading earlier when you were on live. Tina was here, Alice. I think I did say at the time, maybe you've forgotten, but quite a lot of the information came from Tina. It's quite interesting because over the years I've done tarot readings, then I've stopped for a while. I've gone back to them, and we started doing a thing called Rags to Hags about 6 years ago. Tina, would it be? About six years ago, and we would sell candles and crystals and that. And I decided to open a little tarot stall at the back of our stall. And it was going quite well. And this lady came in one day, and I was halfway through the reading. She burst into tears, and she says, "Do you see spirit?" I says, "Well, no, but I know somebody who does." And with that, Tina spoke to the court, and she said, "Do you need me around here?" There, I said, "Yes." So I went around and I looked after the stall, and Tina took over the reading. And so we carried on with that. It happened about 3 times like that. And then we started doing readings together. So Tina would sit there with a notebook and a pen, writing down all the spirit messages that came through while I did my tarot reading. And at the end of it, she would give what she got, which wasn't working very well. And her guide came and told me off. He actually appeared to me, and he told me off. So now, when we do readings, we don't do them as often now. Sometimes I will sit there for the entire hour and not get a chance to speak. It's brilliant. Yeah.
Okay, Patrick, move your mic away from your mouth just a wee bit, please.
Yep.
Yeah, that should do it.
How's that?
Okay. No, now you're gonna have to put it back because I can't hear you. It's gone away. You're too far away.
1, 2, 3.
There you go. Perfect. Okay.
Right.
Okay. So I'm gonna have fun with this one. It's gonna be a good show. So Patrick, you said you were doing tarot readings from when you were how old?
12? 12, yeah.
Okay. So how did you know to do tarot readings when you were 12?
Well, I sort of knew they worked because my mum used to read tea leaves, and she used to show me the meanings of the tea leaves and the cups and that. She used to read playing cards, and I took an interest in telepathy and the Zener cards. And of course, it was remarked in one of the books I read that because the cards are very unemotional, it would work better with something with a lot more emotional impact. So I went out and bought myself a deck of tarot cards. I was working and in school at the time, so I could afford them. So I was doing readings with the book in one hand and the cards in the other. And I went over to my sister's one evening, and my sister-in-law asked me to read hers. So I said, yeah, okay. And I said, you'll be moving within 3 days. You'll be moving home. She laughed. She thought me so silly. She said, I'm about 2,000 down on the housing list. So I read the cards again. I said, no, they definitely said you'd be moving within 3 days. So she went off laughing. And on the Monday morning, she received a letter from the council saying that she had a new house.
That she had a new house. Very
Yeah,
nice.
and there's quite an interesting turn to this, in that she was given emergency housing because they had decided to tear down the tenement she was in, but then they never tore it down. There's still people living in it 40 years later. It was quite bizarre.
Hopefully
I
they fixed it up
realized.
a bit over 40 years.
Sorry?
Hopefully they fixed it up a bit in the past 40 years.
I hope so, but it was still there last time I was in Dublin. It didn't look much better. But yeah, I realized that the cards were just a way of connecting with spirit, and spirit were helping her. It took me a lot of years to realize that. In fact, a lot of the things that I read and partially understood, I would say, are now part of my life since I met Tina. Because basically, am I going mute?
No, you're fine. What I
Oh,
did, I figured this
check
out
yourself.
was, sorry, Tina, I just muted you
Yeah.
because, like I said, it's his voice that carries over to your mic.
Oh, perfect. I can hear myself now. Oh, so much better. Yeah, so when I met Tina, and there's a lot of stories that I can tell you, I was very uptight. I was deeply grieving. I wanted to die. I wasn't interested in a relationship. I wasn't interested in anything. But you know yourself, the body keeps going. And she persuaded me to take my shoes off. It took her ages. Right? And I eventually took my shoes off, and it changed my whole life. It was the beginning of a complete healing for me, and of actually doing the things that I'd studied for 40 odd years became part of my life rather than just ideas and theories and strange experiments. I actually began to live where I'd researched my whole life, but it started with taking out my shoes. And to be honest, I wouldn't be alive today if it wasn't for Tina. She's an amazing natural medium, and she's got this huge healing aura, you know. So yeah, so that's basically how it. I realized a couple of years ago I had a major transformation. I finally got rid of a lot of the things that hold me back, and I was with a friend of ours, Anne Pearson, and I was on a journey with her, and she's also an amazing medium, although she's retired. And I met hundreds of people during my journey, and she said, "These are all the people who have helped you throughout your life." And there were hundreds. I cried when I realized we all think we're struggling through life alone. We think that's it, you know, like it's me, it's all on my shoulders, it's all my fault. But no, there are hundreds of people helping everybody. There's so much love and support there. And Tina instinctively knew this, and she never worried. Me, I just worried and worried and worried. And it was only when I saw those people, not only did I start the process of putting worries to one side, but I realized actually I'm not that clever. I'm not that smart. Because everything I thought was me was all these people pushing and pulling and shouting and screaming, trying to get me to do the things that would improve my life and those around me.
Well, it finally worked. You finally listened.
Yeah, it took a while.
Okay, I'm going to mute you,
Yeah.
and then I'm going to open up Tina's mic because I had a question for her.
Yeah.
This is fun. Yeah, I love when Tina's eyes roll too, don't you? It's like, okay, so Tina, what was it that made you say want him to take his shoes off?
Well, basically, since I was so young, I feel the energy through my feet, through so I told him to try and do that because basically he was so clogged up, his system was so clogged up with, you know, grieving and all the other things that that's the only way he could do it really, and that's the only way I do it. and I just thought that would help him. And eventually he did get it. It took a while, but he eventually got it.
It does take our boys a little while to get things, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Okay,
Just a
so
bit.
barefoot medium.
Yes.
Is that you, Tina?
That's me. That's me.
Okay. All righty. Because I noticed that on one of you. I'm loving my show. I love it, but it's kind of slow at times. But most people put up with me because if they don't, except for Brian, but I love him anyway. Okay, I put in the link in the chat room.
Okay.
Patrick's aw. He had to type that one. I still got him muted. Not Brian. Patrick, you can unmute yourself when you want to talk. Just click on the link. You should be able to unmute yourself as you want to talk.
Oh, we certainly will. Bless.
Jeez, Brian, you're such a sweetheart. Okay. All right, we're gonna go back. I do have questions. So Tina, I'm gonna mute you again, and I'm gonna unmute the chatterbox, which is just below me here. Aussie humor. That's boy humor. Don't even try it. Okay. Patrick, you've written how many books now so far?
Actually, I think it's 4, is it? No, well, 5 counting from the views, but I haven't published it because it would cost a fortune. Yeah. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you fine. Okay, your first book was, if I remember correctly, was Kiara?
Kira, yeah.
Nope.
I wrote that one by accident.
You wrote it by accident?
Yeah, well, as I said, we were expecting our first book, The Fairy Realms, to come out from Gal Press about 4 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously we wanted to post material on our page from the Muse to get people interested and involved, and hopefully help sell a few books and keep the whole thing going that we were doing anyway. And so I don't know, I sat down one Friday evening, I think it was, and I thought, well, I have to put something on. Now, a lot of my poetry's channeled, so when spirit wants me to write, they'll kick me out of bed at 3 o'clock in the morning, or I'll sit down and bump. I'll read something, I think, oh my God, you know. But sometimes they don't, and I will write my own poetry, which is reasonably good, but it's never got the same oomph as the spirit stuff. I mean, I gotta say that it just doesn't. And I thought, I'll write a short story. So I thought, what would it be like if you were a fairy who woke up as a human being? So I began to write about this fairy waking up in the woodlands and how she felt, and and so I posted that as a flash fiction. And people said, "Wow, that's great. What happens next?" I thought, "What do you mean? What happens next?" So I thought, right, well, after about a week or so, I'll see if I can add some more to it. So I added a bit more to it, and I added a bit more to it, and then I looked at it and I realized that I'd actually got to 25,000 words, which was a novelette. And that section of the story had reached natural ending. So I thought, well, why don't I put it out as an ebook? And I did with Smashwords. But it didn't sell very well. I thought, well, if it sells, I'll write the rest of the book, which I will one day, which is a much bigger book, right? Because it's more like the introduction to a large, but at 25,000 words, it's a respectable read. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's how I wrote here. It was by accident, and I just decided to put it all into a book and see, if people would buy it. It didn't sell terribly well because without the marketing, it's quite difficult to get your work out there with yourself published. And I only realized years later that, as well, that as most of the people that read my poetry are in my age group, And most people in my age group, if they go onto a website and they've got a choice of 7 different formats to download a book in, will go no further. So it was only when I went on to um, Amazon this year that I actually started to sell, because people could go on, click on it, and read it.
Yeah.
And I realized that was the problem. That literally, not only had I done no marketing, but for the very people who would be interested in anything I had to say, that the whole system was just too confusing for them. So yeah, I've sold a couple of books. Not honestly, I won't be giving up my day job anytime soon. But it's not about money. It's about
No.
expressing yourself. It's about helping people. You know, I had a few people say that. I mean, I think the next book I did was Finding Your Own Way. Now, again, I put it out as an ebook. I didn't do too bad about 3 years ago, and then it just, like I didn't promote it, so it didn't go any further. And I put that out, and I mean, I had a lovely comment from one lady who says she keeps it with her all the time. It's a great source of inspiration to her, and that's basically about uh, uh, the whole new age world. I mean, there are so many wannabes and con artists out there. Then you've got so many groups that the whole purpose seems to be to push those on top up and to hold those on the bottom down and stop people
Mhm.
from learning. And so it was basically basic meditation, advice about the best ways to set up, the things to avoid, because I believe everybody needs to find their own path. If you're following somebody else's spirituality, it's not going to get you very far. It'll bring you to a point, and that's it. Because the whole thing, it's about individuation, as Carl Jung called it, about becoming the best version of yourself that you can become. That's evolving spirit. Uh, Not doing what somebody else did. It's great to learn from what other people do, but that can only carry you so far. You need to find your own interpretation, because you're working with your own inner symbols, and you are the power source. You are the power source. You can use God or Buddha or any icon you like to pass the blame over, but everything in your life is your responsibility. Everything in your life is your choice, and every path forward is your path. And the more you follow your own inner needs and energies and allow them to grow in the direction which they need to grow, the further you will progress spiritually in a single lifetime. And that's my opinion. Obviously, I'll state it as if it's I'm God and it's it, but that's just my way of presenting things.
Okay.
Which is why I wrote the book. Yeah,
And the title of that book was,
Finding Your Own Way.
I think I have that one.
Yeah, I really should have made it a longer title, but never mind. Yeah, Finding Your Own Way to what? But that's me again.
No, it's perfect. Okay, just a quick one in the chat room. Becky, I'm not sure why both aren't working, but maybe listen on the cell phone and log in with your iPad so you can work in the chat room. It's the only way I can. I just do everything by computer, so it works on that. I have. I have a feeling I'm going to mute you, Patrick, or I'm not going to mute you. Just Tina, do you have something to say? Because okay, then it was just me reading into your look. There was something in your look that just like you had something to say. If you do, just sort of give me some kind of sign, or just poke me, smack me, whatever. There you go. Yeah, one of those things. And I'll mute your hubby, and we'll continue. Let you have your 2 cents in here. Now you said your mom, and this is interesting to me. Your mom used to read. One thing you'll find about me is I kind of bounce everywhere, and if
That's
I
not a
get
problem.
distracted, it's like I'm like a cat. I see something shiny, I got to go there. You said your mom used to read tea leaves.
Yeah.
And she taught you how to read tea leaves. So you grew up knowing that spirit was part of your life. So you were able to be open to everything else that was to come.
In a sense, I mean, as you said, I'm working on a book at the moment. It's called Dublin Days, and it's been reminding me of a lot of things. But the house we grew up in was haunted, and I saw the ghost. My mum used to read playing cards and tea leaves, and I mean, I often witnessed her doing it, and I asked her about the tea leaves, and she explained. But yeah, I started off knowing it, but Dublin was Catholic in a sense. On the surface, it was Catholic. Most of the men were the socialists, I think. But my mum would quite happily read tea leaves for friends and neighbours, or the playing cards of a weekday, and then go to mass of a Sunday. And there was no real sort of a connection between either event, if you understand me. So yeah, I accepted it, but I wasn't that interested. I think I did get the book Chiro's Secrets of the Hand, and I started to read it, but because I had nobody to practice with, it was just forgotten about. It was really the tarot cards that started me on the path, because at that stage I wanted to unbecome a Catholic. When I was 12, after my dad died, I wanted to unbecome it. I wanted to prove it was all bullshit. I wanted to embrace atheism. In fact, I became an existentialist, and in many ways I still am, which you might think is strange, because existentialists believe that there's no plan except the plan that you make. There's no meaning except the meaning that you make in life. So in that sense, I am still very existentialist. But I now see the spiritual aspect of things, because things are what they are, as Tina's been saying to me for so many years. But I mean, that statement covers everything, because what we see, nothing is planned in one sense, in that everything's open to be changed. Uh, it's the whole concept of free will and suffering is something I've battled with my whole life, because at the back of my mind, I was still thinking of a personal God. But a God cannot be like a man or a woman. God or goddess, it doesn't make sense, right? We are gods. We are part of it. But so is every rock, every stone, every tree, every insect. We're all expressions of the same force. We are all that same force. And we're evolving through experience. So it's never going to be a happy, happy, happy world, because every sort of experience needs to be gone through in one form or another. That's why you cannot run out saving people. I spent so much of my life trying to, but actually you have to let people evolve through their own path. They may need a certain suffering to make a certain realization to round out their personality or their being, really. Because I have this crazy theory, which actually you can't find in Hindu writings and some of the Buddhist writings as well, I think, that we're part of the breath of God, that at the beginning of the universe, God exhales, and that spirit passing down through the spheres, becoming more and more like matter, more and more dense, slower and slower, and then growing back up through consciousness, back to divine purity at the end of the universe. So it's the breath of God. God's energy breathes out, becomes matter, matter becomes life, life becomes intelligence and consciousness, consciousness becomes God consciousness. At that stage, the whole process has actually begun to reverse itself until all this experience, all the things we experience as pain and suffering because of fear, go back to the source. And the reason is love. Love cannot operate in a single being. Love needs individuality, it needs variety, it needs an object of that love. And that's why we are in the universe we are in, and how so many people live so very different lives, because that's the experience that they're drawn to or they resonate with, until they learn from it, they change, and then they draw new experiences. But that's just my theory on it. I think there'd be quite a few people would agree with it roughly, though.
Well, I think, yeah, I like, this show is about what you have to say or what you have to share. So yeah, it's important to understand. Sorry, um, that's your view, and it makes sense. God help me, man, makes sense. I'm sorry. um, Eric Glenn in the chat room says that the nasty concept of free will gets in the road of a really good idea every time. And yeah, Tina's shaking her head. Oh heck yes. Okay. Why I sometimes, Tina, say, well, I'll try this one again. Why I sometimes say what is it written in the chat room is because when people listen in the archives, they don't always see everything. They just listen to the MP3 part of it. So they'll get to know, they get to visually see it through my words, which could be very scary at times. And as Cheryl says, it always makes sense to listen to others' views, but that is how we learn and in most cases grow. Well, yeah, if you're not listening, no one person has the answers. So no one person will ever sit there and say, people will sit there and I don't need to listen because I know everything that I need to know. There's no such thing as one person knowing everything that they need to know. Everybody's learning, everybody's growing at every moment in the day. You half the time you don't realize that you're learning, and when you're learning. So this is why this is one of the things I like about everybody sharing. I'm a big proponent of share and sit back and listen. Shut your yap and listen to somebody else talk. You don't have to agree. I don't have to agree with you. I don't have to agree with Eric says he used to be conceited. Now he's just perfect and he's honest. Perfectly honest. To be honestly perfect. But yeah, you don't have to agree with somebody. Just listen. You'd be amazed at how many things that you can learn. Just pick up, and sometimes it's people are afraid to listen. They're afraid that they're going to learn something that will change their mind on, because like you, I was raised Catholic, and I never the priest, when I used to have to go to the catechism class and study and listen to special mass and whatever, my mind was on the angels and the lovely drawings around. And they would physically have to poke me, go, Darlene, say, yes, oh, sorry. So I still haven't changed. I still kind of see where I go around and look at other things. And yep, Cheryl says, true, to be open-minded is sometimes the biggest first step. Very true, very true. Okay, you guys. All right. Patrick, you said you were going through a lot of grieving and you had no plans of meeting anybody, or just that was your focus was like, I'm done.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
My focus was basically on dying. I had decided to just switch off and slowly fade away.
Okay. Well, if I can ask, what were you grieving? Or who were you grieving?
My late wife of 20 years marriage, we moved up here and she passed away shortly afterwards. We moved from London to Lincolnshire, and she passed away. I didn't deal with it very well.
There's no way of you at Crackers. Crackers
yes.
is good, depending if it's especially when it's dipped in soup.
Yes.
Then you became all soft and mushy, and Tina was your soup, and you became all soft and mushy again. Eric Glenn in the chat room has said Nellie, which is his grandmother, an amazing lady. Wish I'd have known her, but I'm sure I do. Nellie taught me I have 2 ears and 1 mouth and should be used like that. So listen more than you talk because you have 2 ears. True. Okay, so if you were intent on dying and you were giving up and you were like, where did you meet Tina?
Now that is an interesting story. Several years before I left London, I went to Covent Garden Covent Garden with my wife Frances, and I was I'd had premonitions of her death, and I'd dragged her off to about half dozen different doctors. Said she had a heart condition. They tell us no, she's just got reflux. She's perfectly okay. And I didn't realize that she was actually beginning to get older, looking through her illness, because I saw her every day.
Mm-hmm.
And we went to Covent Garden, and I was drawn to this tarot reader. So I'll try this guy out. And for 25 quid, he sat me down, and he described this blonde-haired, blue-eyed girl who I'd meet, and he described Tina to a T. I managed not to punch his lights out, because I realised that he obviously, from my point of view, was accused me of having an affair, which I would never have, you know. And then Francis came back and he said, "Would your mum like a reading?" At which stage he very nearly had a nasty accident.
Punched his lights out.
Yes, so I gave him his 25 quid as, I was sort of rigid and, and living at the same time. And I left my top. What a beg, you know? And it was many years later I realised he'd actually described my meeting with Tina, and he described it to a T. It's one of the dangers of being a tarot reader, is that sometimes people don't get the validation for 8 years, you know. But it was great. It was quite a few years afterwards when the penny actually dropped. Yeah. But yeah, so I strongly believe that my late wife guided me to her. So I met Tina before Frances passed. I did a tarot cards for her, and I did a tarot cards, and the next time we met was probably a year later for her then partner. He was a pillock, but that's neither here nor there.
I know some of those words.
I mean, basically, right? I'm psychic. I've been psychic my whole life, right? I've read the tarots for 40 years. I read people as well, right? I've studied psychology as a layman for many, many, many years. I know all the different schools of thought. So I look at somebody, I use everything, right? I want to look at this guy, and I could see exactly where he's coming from. I knew he was a liar. I knew he was a smug, arrogant liar who was convinced that I would never dig out his deep, dark secrets, right? So I did, as you do. He wasn't very happy about that reading, as I'm sure Tina will tell you. But yeah, so I met her again, and there was a connection there which I wasn't comfortable with, because I was still married. And I thought no more about it, pushed it out of my mind. It's just, when you meet somebody and it's like, you think, oh, there's something there. Well, it's something there that's never going to, so let's just avoid that person for the next 20 years. And we eventually got put together by our parents. And we were very, very uncertain about the whole thing. It didn't feel right. Nobody liked the idea. We tried to split up. We tried to be friends, but eventually, I realized that I just loved her. I didn't think it would last, me being so much older. I didn't know Tina. I mean, the first few years were incredible. She just knocked me on my ass day after day, because she just constantly amazed me. She, every day I'd find a new aspect to her that I didn't believe was, like possible in somebody. But anyway, to go back to the story, I had decided to sell my house because I was going to die there. It was the house I had planned to die in. I sold her a massive loss because, the market dropped within weeks of my buying it. But I would have died had I stayed there. It was that simple. So we had a house about half stripped out. I was in very ill health then. As I said, I've studied the occult all my life, so when I decided to die, I did a pretty good job of it. I've still got, I'm still diagnosed with an incurable, in inverted commas, lung disease. But that's another story, and that involves Tina. But anyway, I said to my wife, I said, listen, I said, I don't know if I'm doing the right thing or not. I said, give me a sign that I can't misinterpret to suit myself because I'm a devious bugger and I'm quite capable of lying to myself if it suits me. Give me a sign that even a devious sod like me cannot misinterpret, right? So at the time, as I said, I wasn't very well, and Tina and Tommy were helping me clear the house. They were doing most of the work. In fact, I couldn't get rid of stuff. They were basically, listen, go and sit on Facebook, and we'll do this. But we had a little. It had been a utility room, which myself and Francis turned into a mini conservatory, because the sunlight flooded in there. We had often sit out there, and Athena had come over one Sunday, and we were sitting there, and there was a little dream catcher belonging to Francis, and it was moving. And I said, "Look, that's moving." And she said, "Well, go over and see if you can sense anything. Stand near it." So I went out mainly to check if the back window was closed properly. There was no breeze blowing it. I'm still a cynic even now. I just check everything. I analyze everything. And I went out and I thought, no, the window's closed. I'm looking at the wind chime, and then I looked, and my stepson, who had come up here with us, and has since gone back down to London, had built these little CD racks into the wall, and we had cleared them. But there, in one of the CD racks which had been emptied, was the tape which I wanted to use for her funeral service. It was called the Lords of Light by the St. Louis Jesuits. Now, my problem was I knew the music, I couldn't think of the name of the monks, I couldn't think of the name of the album, but I knew I had a copy of it. So we had torn the house apart. We still had some boxes left upstairs which we hadn't opened since we'd moved. And myself, my stepdaughter, my stepson tore the house apart and could not find this tape, so I had to pick a different song, and I was a bit gutted about it because it was one I particularly wanted to use at the service. That tape had somehow reappeared and was standing upright in the CD cabinet. It just standing there. It was sitting on the only CD I'd ever burnt on a computer because Francis had taken a liking to the tune, and I had managed to burn her onto a CD for her. And behind it was a pen bought umpteen years previously by our children with a name on it in a little box. All three items assembled together. I've got a photograph of it somewhere still. I think if I haven't lost it when I've killed one of my many laptops that have died in my hands. But yeah, I thought, well, I just can't argue with a sign like that. You know, it was quite incredible.
That's awesome. I like that. Eric had to go feed. Hopefully he doesn't just feed on sugar. So he should be back. All right. I'm gonna mute you now, Patrick. I'm sorry for the beeps. And I'm going to unmute Tina. Hey, Tina.
Hello.
Okay, so what was your first thought of Patrick when you met him? When he was doing that first reading for your friend, who was it? What was that word that he used again? Bullock?
Yeah, I'm not going to replace it because I think it's just not a nice word.
Think of a few others, but I know that one too.
He first did a reading for me, and I was on my own basically. I didn't have no intention of getting with anybody else because I'd just come out of a really, really bad relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And he described the guy that I got with to a T, but he's classed him as carny folk.
As
so
what?
Carnival folk, gypsy
Okay.
type looking.
Oh my gosh.
Got him 2 weeks later. I met this guy, and we had a relationship. But in the relationship, towards the end, he was a complete and utter pig, basically, and it didn't work at all. And Pat described him to a T, and that was just fascinating. Yeah. So.
And but when you guys first got together,
Yeah.
okay, and like he said that you were set up by friends or set.
No, family. I knew of Pat for quite a while. But I knew that it was through Francis. But I knew there was a connection there, I think, before Pat did. But I didn't want to go down that path because he was married, and I don't do married men. It's part of what I am. But when we got together, it was very difficult because my parents initially put us together at the table at Christmas time, and then we just started talking and chatting and chatting and chatting, and we couldn't stop chatting. And then it just developed from there. And then my parents got very waspy about it and said that I shouldn't be with him. And then I tried to break the relationship off, and then I realised that we had got a connection and that we should be together. And we started meeting in secret. It was the only way we could get to see each other for a while. And then they completely shut Pat off completely, but now they've come round to that way of thinking, and they've realised there is a connection with us, and everything's hunky-dory now. So,
Okay.
yeah.
And how long have you and Patrick been together?
7. Well, we've been married. Well, we've been together 7 years, and we've been handfasted 4 years.
I like that handfast. It's a whole other story. I could explain one day, but this is we'll talk.
Yeah, it's absolutely beautiful. Absolutely.
Was that this? Hold on a second. Was that this picture that I had?
Yes, that's the one. Yeah.
You know what? When I had a bunch of pictures, I asked Patrick for a bunch of pictures, and I Facebook stalked his pictures. I'm really good at that. And isn't it pretty? And I like this one. I said, you look so madly in love. You know, and it's like a perfect fit. And I wasn't sure if it was a wedding picture or, like a fair that you had gone to. I was just like, no, this is, yeah, exactly, pure joy. Just like cheeks glowing. Because you can see both your cheeks right here glowing. And that chandelier over top, like that's like just sort of knocks it.
Yeah.
But that's
there's a story about that hotel.
did you know?
When Pat had always said that this place is going to flood because it's right next to an estuary, a very busy Humber estuary, and then it actually did flood, and the hotel was absolutely wrecked. It just got so much water damage that it's only just reopened. It's been opened about a year now. So it's took them 4 years to get this hotel back to scratch. It just completely wrecked the building. Yeah.
Have you been back to it since?
Oh, yeah, I did that. I made all the curtains for the new building.
Don't let Patrick back in there. He might make it float again.
Yeah, the pixies will be in.
Yeah, don't trust me, Brian. I got that one in big print. We're going to get back to telepathy with Patrick because Brian is my dear friend. That's the only one who's allowed into my brain, except for one small tiny corner that he's not allowed access to, and he behaves himself and stays out of that one. But all right, tell me one thing about Patrick that nobody else knows. Aside that he snores.
He does.
No question there. That nobody else knows.
Now that's a question.
Okay, I'll let you think about it. And I'll go back to Patrick with telepathy because Brian is itching. Let's see if I can do this one. Whoops, hang on a second. Sorry for the beeps. There we go. All right.
Right.
Patrick, telepathy.
Well, that comes back. Really, my first investment was I had actually applied for the priesthood, and as I said to you, I decided to unbecome a Catholic. I was angry with God, as you were when you were young. My dad died when I was 12, and it was all bets off as far as I was concerned.
Mm-hmm.
So I started reading anything that might break the conditioning.
Okay.
I started to read a lot of existentialism, and one of the major contributors is a psychiatrist called Richard Lang. He started off. He was an intern in Scotland, and he went on to work as a psychiatrist, and he did a lot of work with schizophrenics. And he maintained that schizophrenics, he had quite a few case histories where they would know things going on in their family while they were locked up in an asylum. Now, in those days, hardly anybody had a phone, let alone there was, communication was not easy. And if you were in an asylum, you were in an asylum. That was it. You didn't get to hear anything except what a visitor might tell you. So I thought, this is fascinating. So what's the force? Well, I didn't want to take a spiritual path and push that to one side. So I thought, well, it has to be telepathy. So I started to learn all I could about telepathy. And that's basically what led me to trying out the tarot cards. Now, a few years later, I think it must be in my late teens, I came across a book, Real Magic by Philip de Bonowitz. And he was the first and probably only person ever to get a PhD in occultism and thaumaturgy, which is basically healing. And he cited a Russian scientist in the 50s who thought he had worked out how the human body acted as an accelerator and a transmitter for very long magnetic waves, which could actually bounce around the earth and carry basic messages. So that's how I got interested in it. But of course, by the time I'd gotten not too far into it, I found myself back on a more occult path. And I realized, I thought back to how much I knew as a child, things I shouldn't have been able to know. But then I did listen into an awful lot of things I shouldn't have. So it's quite hard to tell which was which. But I began to practice with it. I would sit on the top of a bus and I'd stare at people. As I walked by, the people I would stare at people and I would make a count of how many people turned around, how long it took them to turn around. And in the end, 80% of the people I looked at would turn and look up exactly where I was within about 10 seconds max. So I knew there was a connection between people, which I assumed to be telepathy. To be honest, if it exists in that form, it doesn't change everything else that I've learned. The simple fact is we're all connected. We're all the same being. I mean, as I said, I argue to myself about God, and any logical, rational person will know that a personal God cannot exist unless he's some sort of a demigod or mini god that men have created. But an actual divine source could not be a personality. But so, I mean, to put it in a nutshell, I came to the conclusion that given all the apparent suffering in the world, right, and all the hard times people go to, if God was a person, he would be the worst person in the world, and he would be the God described by the Cathars, who was a cruel, vindictive bugger. But if God was every person, that changes it. And that's the symbology of crucifixion. I mean, Jesus of Nazareth quite likely existed, and the foundation for the Catholic Church is quite likely not only possible, but real. But that's just one path. That's just one path to learning. But the idea that God's in it with us changes the whole thing. It just turns around on his head. So when something terrible happens to you, there's no point in blaming God, because you are God and he's you experiencing it, because we are all the one being experiencing life in a myriad different ways at the same time. which goes back to what I said about the breath of God. So I've begun to realize that we know things because we are all connected. And I mean, telepathy may or may not exist. It doesn't matter. The simple fact is we know things. If you ask, you'll be told. When I first went into witchcraft, which obviously the tarot cards led me into witchcraft, I wanted a particular book by the deck of cards I bought was by Richard Gardner. He was a kind of he was a witch, but he was a sort of more of a theosophist, yeah. And he believed that we are all like television sets, that we are constantly transmitting information from within, right? And we filter out most of it. We know everything that's happening around us, but we choose not to see it. When we meet somebody, we know what they're going to do, how they're going to do it, how our relationship will end, but we choose not to consciously accept it. And that's been proven in model. I mean, if you take even games theory, transactional analysis, right? It works, right? It heals people, it helps people go the path through life. So it's a proven school of psychology, but it depends on the assumption that within 10 seconds of meeting each other, people know enough about each other to know what kind of games we will play and what part we're playing. So we have a huge amount of information on the mundane level because there is no real division. There is no spirituality and mundane. You are having a spiritual experience no matter where you are in life, no matter what you're doing in life. And the sooner people realize that, the sooner they can actually live better lives, because there is no going to mass on Sunday and say you're breaking into houses for Monday to Friday, confession Saturday, communion Sunday. It doesn't work like that. You are your life. You are the sole arbiter of it. Karma is simply the obvious result of what you're doing. So you act, and things happen. Unfortunately, if you act badly, things happen badly to you as a result of it, and you learn by it, and you grow and you develop. So there is no bad. Not in Once you accept that we are God and God is us, that we are all God, there is no ultimate bad, because everything that happens brings you forward, and everything that happens will eventually result in you becoming perfect, if you want to call it that, or reaching the best version of you can become, or vibrating on a higher level and returning to a full connection with God as an undifferentiated being. So you then become part of God in consciousness. There's no division anymore between the ego and the soul, and that is the whole purpose of it. You do things, you live, you experience, you do bad, you do good, you get angry, you get sad, you learn from all of them until eventually you learn to rise above it. Which is, I mean, the phrase says it all. You rise above it, and eventually you become part of that undifferentiated consciousness, and you leave all the ego behind. Now, whether that happens to everybody all at the same time or it's happening bit by bit, I think it's happening bit by bit, but that's just my opinion. And so, basically, we know all these things. We have access to these things, but it's our choice whether we tune in to the messages that are there or we tune them out. So if I want to say, how to put it, if I like being angry, if angry is my bag, right, I will resonate with people who have anger as their favorite thing, and I will live a life of battles and fights and false victories, and so will they. I mean, I'll have great fun being angry with each other, right? Because that's the vibration we resonate on. And if somebody comes up trying to make us see that a peaceful approach would be so much better for us, he's an idiot. He's a wuss. He's a wimp. We cannot resonate with them until we've had so much of anger that it either breaks us or hurts us so badly that we think, whoa, this ain't so good anymore. And then you become open, and somebody can come along and help you heal. But That's why I used to be like Don Quixote, tilting at windmills. And I finally realized, and Tina was one of the people who helped me realize it. She said, "You can't heal the world. You can only heal somebody if they come to you, if they're ready, if they're open, and then you can be a channel for information from a much higher source, to help that person get that one realization that they need. Now they could get that as a Catholic, as a Buddhist, as a Jew, as a Muslim. There's nothing wrong with religions. They're perfectly acceptable ways of learning and growing as a person until you outgrow them. The problem is clinging on to them as if, oh dear. The problem is clinging on to them as if they were ultimate truth. There is no ultimate truth for a man. Every single opinion has some valid aspect. Yeah. Every single opinion does have some valid aspect. And, once we accept that I will always act as if I'm right, because not to do so means you won't survive. And that's built into your body. So, throughout evolution, because it's necessary. But as you go to the thing of ideas, you need to step back and say, well, yeah, I'm right, you're right. I know we're saying the opposite things, but we're actually both right. We're right for each other. I am where I should be, and the learnings I have are what keep me where I am. If I get too much suffering from that, then I need new learning. So if I'm a Catholic and I'm very unhappy, I may need to become an atheist and I have to move on. I may need to become a Jew. I may need to embrace Islam. It doesn't matter. And somebody could be coming the opposite direction. So they could be coming from being a Muslim to becoming Catholic, or from an atheist to a Catholic. And I've seen people change their lives going in both directions. And I've seen really spiritual people who would describe themselves as atheists. Because it doesn't matter. The ideas you have are the only ones you can understand at that moment in time in the way you can understand it. But you have this constant flow of information which is there if you choose to listen to it or to tune into it. Well, and that's why magic works. That's why you have all the laws of magic. And they all come down to this simple thing of tuning in or tuning out. And I find that really what I read in that first book, it was called The Purpose of Love. And how I found it was really strange. I bought the deck. I bought his book on the tarot cards. At the back of it, it mentioned that he had this other book. So I went into Easton's bookstore. It was the largest bookshop in Dublin at the time. In fact, it was the only really big one. And I asked for this book, Purpose of Love. He said, "Oh, we have 4 copies in the shop somewhere." "Oh, great." I said, "Where do I go look for them?" "Oh, they're in the bargain basement." "Oh, great." So I goes down, and Easton's is huge. It's like this massive warehouse, and there's hundreds of thousands of books piled in stacks in front of me. So I said to myself, right, please, if I'm meant to read this book, help me find it. Took a deep breath. I walked halfway across the warehouse, lifted a pile of books. There it was, and I picked her up. And it was only one of 4 copies in Ireland at the time, because Easton's was the only bookshop would have had it. All of the bookshops were basically either religious bookshops or second-hand bookshops. There were no other bookshops in Ireland. Yeah. So yeah. I mean, that's all it boils down to. All spirituality boils down to is asking and listening. You say, what do I need to do next? And then you actually listen, and then you try and carry it out until you get to your next bit where you're stuck. Sorry, I do tend to go on a bit.
No,
But
that's fine.
well,
That's fine. It's your show.
if
Ish.
that's
Yeah, Tina.
hopefully somewhere in there I've answered the thing about telepathy. I don't know what happened though.
I'll have
But
to
yeah,
check with Brian. But Brian also asked, "Do you have a problem in crowded places?" And Tina said, "Yes, she does."
you should let Athena answer that more than me. Yeah.
Okay, so then we'll hush you for a few minutes and give Tina the mic. I like doing that. I like hushing the voice. Okay, Tina. Your problem with crowded places?
Yeah, the energy. The energy. I can't deal with a lot of negativity. I'm a very positive person, and because I'm so connected to spirit, it's very difficult for me to go into a supermarket and not see spirit. And it's very difficult for me to engage in negative people. It gives me a really bad headache. So you just learn to protect yourself. I use a lot of energy magic, that protects me sometimes. Otherwise, it just fries my brain. I can't handle it, and I have to just walk. There's incidents where we've actually gone into supermarkets and I've actually left that, and I've just had to go because I can't deal with it.
Mhm. Well, I can tell you because I know Brian quite well. The reason he's asking is because he is telepathic. He does, give me a second, remote viewing. He has gone into my little brain and said things and that told me things that are in there that nobody else knows. Just to me, it's his box that he puts himself in, is being a telepathic and an empath. An empath is he used to not be able to go anywhere because of the energies, and then one day his ever so adorable wife Pauline told him to surround himself in positive energy, just to bubble himself up, and now he can be seen in public, even though
That's so true.
sometimes he shouldn't be, but
That's so true. You could also use, Pat can probably explain it better than me. It's like an egg. Pat uses the egg method, which you wrap yourself around. But I have a golden light. I'm very blessed with a golden aura, which helps me. And I just embed myself that in every day. I have to put that on myself every day, of every week, of every hour, because it's so intense sometimes that I just, it gives me such a bad headache.
I don't think I deal with people every day with my day job. Brian says, yeah, it hurts. I deal with people every day in my day job. There are times that they really get to me, but I try and before I go into my job, I just sort of say, okay, everything that's out here stays out here. Everything that I go into is just nothing but good and positive.
Yeah.
And if anybody's negative, well, the door is right over there.
A friend taught me a very good technique is the fact that if somebody does come with you at negativity and you do feel it, do not bounce the negativity back at them. Send it back with love and affection, because they're dealing probably with a lot of stress, and they probably don't mean it. And you just have to say, okay, that's fine, and just send it back with a lot of love and affection, and because I always say it will come back. It will come back to you. If you show the the negative back to them, they'll bounce it straight back at you, and they will feed off that. And I always say, send them out with a lot of love and affection. It works every time.
It's true. It does. I don't realize that until you said exactly that way. I didn't realize it, but that's exactly what I do. When people come in, I'm a cashier at a very busy store, and and it's also a gas station, and people get kind of like, wah, because of the price of gas and stuff like that, and they come in and they just go crazy, 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 and then and I just stand there and I smile and I nod my head and I understand, and because I know they're not actually angry at me, they're just angry with the situation. So getting angry back at them or just putting up a wall doesn't help. So I just, I said, people who come in my store, no matter what their mood is, when they leave, they're going to be leaving with a smile or at least giggling behind their breath.
And I always say, if you can give somebody a smile, even though they're experiencing a lot of upset and a lot of badness in their lives, if you could just smile at that one person, you can make a difference.
Mm-hmm.
I always say
Agreed.
that's one of mine.
That's agreed. That's very much agreed with that one. And Brian says, yes, thank you very much, Tina and Pat. So we haven't forgotten about you, even though we just got you muted, Patrick. So have you just
unmuted it, Patty? Pat, have you just unmuted that? He cannot stop, can he?
Oh, look at that face. So have you come up with something that that you want to share about Patrick that nobody else knows?
There's nothing. I think he's basically
He's an open
tells
book.
everybody. He is an open book, yeah. But he does sometimes wear his heart on his sleeve. He does.
Mm.
Yeah, he does. And and he's extremely, when he has to have his point across, he will not stop till he's get his point across.
Mm,
But they're good positive
yes.
feedback sometimes. So
Yeah. And he does lollygag about going to bed though.
he's a nightmare at coming to bed.
Yes,
That's it.
I happen to say, um, because the other night, I checked in with him, and he says, "Oh, I'm just on my way to bed." I went, "Okay, good night." And about 10, I went off and I was doing something else on Facebook, and then 10 minutes later, I saw the little green light pop back up, and I went, "Young man, you're supposed to be in bed." And then shortly thereafter, the
Nightmare.
light went out.
Nightmare. But he's a bit of a night owl, so and I'm a bit of a. I need to get to bed because I'm a carer. I do 12-hour shifts, so you can't stay up and burn the candle at both ends. So I'm in bed
Yeah.
usually by that
Well,
time.
first
So
off, thank you very much for staying awake to be with
that's
us
all right.
tonight.
I'm not at
That's for
work
sure.
tomorrow. It's day off. So
Yes,
yes.
I got to keep Tina. Okay. I'm gonna okay, Patrick. I'm gonna unmute you both. Just shh. I don't want to hear you. It's gonna be a next to impossible. I know. I can see the look on that face. Going, if she thinks she's gonna shut me,
Yeah.
yeah. The only person I bounce out of the chat out of this house is my I call my show a house is Brian, and it's because it's just fun to kick him out every so often, just to remind him I'm the boss. Okay. First off, we'll just anybody in the chat room has a question for Tina or Patrick, please type it in caps so that I can read it and I can actually pay attention. You know how I am. I see things and I go, ooh, look at that. You said that the other day when we're going to go on to the readings for a second. Go forth and oh, Brian.
Ooh, fighting talk.
It's okay. It's okay. I'll message his wife. He'll get a smack. You said that when you gave me that reading, that impromptu reading the other day. Yeah, you in big trouble, young man. That it came from Tina. So, and I know that you said that when you did readings, that sometimes Tina would be the one that it would focus, spirit would focus everything through her, and you would just like not get a word in edgewise. And
Yes.
that's like, oh, you be for girls. Oh, you keep the boys quiet. Is there anything that between the two of you, any subjects that you won't touch on when you do readings, when you give?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
Patrick's
definitely.
going no, and Tina's going yes. So, Patrick, you're allowed to speak now. What is it that you will? There's got to be one thing. Okay, aside from what we discussed, there's got to be one thing that you won't touch when it comes
Oh,
to reading.
actually, yes. Thinking about it, I will not give somebody a negative possibility that they can do nothing about. So if I'm giving a reading, I'll do the tarot cards, and my idea would be to present people with the possibilities I see. So if they're having a situation and they're challenged, I will look for ways that they can change their perspective and see a new solution. If there are good things possible, I will try and alert them to those possibilities. But more importantly, prepare them to accept them, because people block themselves. A Tina will then come in, and hopefully I'll have gotten some of the reading done. And depending on which people of spirit are around, I may get back to finish the reading, or I may not. But it's all good.
Well, you work as a team.
Yes.
You know,
Well,
even it's the way spirit works it. You know, sometimes one gets to say, and sometimes the other gets to say. Sorry, but Tina, what is it what is the one thing that you won't?
I won't put. I will when I'm doing any sort of. I do get certain things that will come up when I'm channeling, and I won't talk full on death. If somebody is going to pass to spirit, I won't give them that. It's not the way we work. It's not how I work, because that person could be struggling as it is. And if you used to tell them, oh, somebody's very close to you is about to pass away, you're giving them different things in their head that they're not going to be able to cope with. And that's the only thing I will not talk in spirit. I do get it. I'm not saying I don't, but I will not give it. I will not give it. No way. No way. It's not the way I roll.
Would you, instead of saying, okay, Darlene, okay, Brian, I'm going to use your name because you just popped up and made me think. I had to use your name. If you're going to say, okay, Darlene, I'm not going to, Brian's going to die next week. Instead of saying it like that, and I know that's not the way you would say it, anyone would say it, you could say like, okay, Darlene, maybe you should tell Brian, to get off his high horse and go see the doctor and, or,
Oh yeah, I would say
work,
that.
to work around it without, without giving the person,
Yeah,
But
I would
what
say
if
that, but I wouldn't full on say, oh,
Brian's going to kick the bucket? Not because Brian will
Exactly.
throw the bucket in my head.
No, I wouldn't say that. I'd go the same sort of as as saying, well, I think you've got a family member that needs to go see the doctor, like you would say, and they need to go see them now. It's not, you can't wait, Sorry, I've just read that comment.
I would never hurt Brian. It's okay. And Brian, you're not going anywhere anytime soon. No place wants you. That's why Patrick's sending the flowers. You know I love you, Brian.
Tissues.
Oh.
Oh, bless.
Okay. Okay. So far, nobody's got any questions for you in the chat room, so that's good. We'll just keep chit chatting on them. Okay. All right. So when when you're doing, and I'm going to put the two of you together because I think this works well as a team. I didn't choose it, Spirit did. When you example, thank you. Tina, I come to you and I say, okay, I'd like a reading. And you give me what you get, but then how often does Patrick get the nudge to add his 2 cents?
Well, usually what happens is usually what happens is he will start the reading. He will start a reading, and basically by the time he's drawn his first deck, I could guarantee I've got messages, and then I will just give a few messages, and then Pat will continue. I'll just say to Pat, continue with the reading while I get some more. Sometimes he could go do the different hands of the deck. And then another time he will have to wait maybe 3/4 of an hour because spirit will just give it and it will just come out and I can't stop it. I cannot stop it. I have a very powerful guide, and he will not let me stop. No.
Okay. Question from Brian. Okay, then question for you guys. Why do you do tarot when you can read their mind? That will go to Patrick.
That's for this one.
Okay, I'm going to mute you, Tina. We're echoing again. Big mouth.
As I explained, I read people. I use half a dozen different schools of psychology. I read body language. I pick up things psychically and telepathically. But at the end of the day, for the higher the source, the purer the message. So if I'm buying a car off somebody and the brakes are dodgy, the spirit will tell me. But if they didn't, my psychic senses would warn me there was a danger. His body language would tell me he was lying through his teeth. But when you give a reading, you want to give the best, the purest answer from the highest source possible. And so you go to the highest source available, which is generally spirit. And as I said, I discovered that spirit worked through the cards for me. They have come to me straight as well. I've stood up with Tina a couple of times, and that was quite interesting. I feel safer with the cards, obviously, but more and more when people come to me late at night and they ask me for a reading, I don't have the cards available, or I might only have my own personal deck, and I find spirit fills in the gaps quite nicely for me. But compared to Tina, I've got nowhere near her openness. It is a matter of openness because I'm too analytic. I question everything. I'm learning to give everything I get exactly as I get it, and that works really well. But unfortunately, it's not really in my personality not to question everything.
But
yes,
it's good to question, though.
But I mean, for the straight answer, telepathy would only tell me what they already know. So it would be of no use. I would only be reflecting back their own fantasies. I mean, I want to give them different fantasies. I want to give them new, fresh fantasies, which will allow them to progress and find better solutions. And the way to do that is to listen to spirit and give their point of view, to give their hints. Because at the end of the day, only the person can change their own lives. To me, tarot is pointless if you're just going to give somebody something that's fixed. I can remember a situation. My sister phoned me. She was in a right state. This is many years ago. I was still living in Ireland. And she had had her cards read. And this woman said, "Oh, there'll be a sum of money stolen from the shop that you're in. The police will get involved and you'll end up losing your job." And she was in a right state. I says, "Hang on, Anne." So I flipped and grabbed my deck of cards. I was still using the one deck in those days. I went over there and I sat down and I gave her. And I said, she said, but you're not going to lie to me to make me feel better. I said, "Anne, I wouldn't do that. I will give you a proper reading." I said, a proper tarot reader does not frighten people to death with their reading. So I read it, and sure enough, it come up. There was going to be a robbery in a shop, and the police would get involved. I think the sum I come up with was £500, which was a lot of money in those days.
Still is.
And so I sat and I looked at it and I just relaxed. And I let the story fill itself in. And this is, I think, where spirit comes in, you know? And I said, right, in the very near future, there's a sum of money. I think, as I said, it was either 300 or £500 going to go missing from the shop. The police are going to get involved because you're not going to be able to find it. You being a gobby cow are going to go off on your high horse and quit your job, and 3 weeks later they're going to find the money. But it's not going to help you because you're going to be out of a job that you love. So my advice is, when the money goes missing, keep your mouth shut, answer the police's annoying and insulting questions, and just let it flow over your head because it will resolve itself within 3 weeks. So she was a lot calmer after that. And sure enough, a few weeks later, a fairly large sum of money went missing. And the police got involved. And Anne actually took my advice for once. And she just answered the police's questions and waited. And then 3 weeks later, the situation resolved itself. The area manager, his wife was pregnant and was about a month left to go, or 5 weeks before the birth of the child. And he was coming around doing the cash. And as was his habit, he would take the cash down to the basement, sit there with a fag and a cup of coffee on the stove, do all the counting up, write up the reports, and then, that was it, take the cash to the bank. On this particular day, He went down, he had his cup of coffee, he had his fag going, he had the cash out there. And he got a phone call saying that his wife had been rushed to hospital urgently. So he stuffed everything back into the back of the cigarette safe behind the full packs of the full packs of cartons, and just stuffed it all in there and went to the hospital. And his wife was quite poorly for about 3 weeks. And then the baby was born and things settled, and he went back to work, heard about what happened, and realized where the cash was. It was stuffed in the cigarette safe in the cellar, in the basement. So you see, that's the difference between a good reading and a bad reading. I would say I gave a good reading because I gave the one piece of advice which changed the outcome. The other lady gave a bad piece of advice which set the outcome. We said basically this is going to happen, and added fear instead of useful advice. But it's only I mean, looking back now, I can see that in that moment that I saw what was happening, I saw what the other tarot readers saw, and then I relaxed. Why did I relax? I was opening myself up to the higher information, to the to the help from spirit. So instead of using my own analysis of the cards based on the meanings and so on, I actually allowed spirit to give me a fuller story, which was a helpful one. And so that's basically how it works for me. Now I seldom even tell people things that will happen. I'll tell them where they are, what's around them, and what things they should try and learn about themselves or change about themselves to make what happens be a better outcome, or to catch opportunities that you might have missed in the present mindset. So I'm not really a sort of a Gypsy Lee type fortune teller, which is why I have like I don't have to be anymore because I have Tina with me, because she just comes straight out with it, and that's it. What I do instead now is, it was advice given to me by Eileen Ackrell. She's a fairly well known psychic locally. Is I use several decks of cards, but I use two versions of the same Rider-Waite tarot. I use the old Rider-Waite tarot and the new brighter coloured one. And instead of having to tell people facts to prove I know what I'm doing, if there's something that they really need to know, it will come up in both decks of cards, and the same cards will come up. And it happens so often you wouldn't believe it. So if I tell if a certain sequence of cards come up, and to be honest, I've used so many decks and looked at so many meanings over the years that the meanings have become meaningless. In that I might read the same card 100 different ways depending on who I'm speaking to. Slight variations, sometimes large variations, but those cards would go out and I would give the interpretation, and the person might look totally unconvinced. As I said, I read people. Yeah, I'm quite open about it. Yeah. So I would go to the second deck, which is almost identical, and I would shuffle them, and then the same cards would come out, and they think, "Oh my God, somebody up there is trying to tell me something." That works for me. But that's, to me, is a good reading. Is you don't tell somebody you're going to die in a week, or you're going to lose your job, or you say, as things stand, unless the cards can give you a reason and an alternative, what is the point of that person going to you? If you can't give them the piece of the puzzle that they're missing, you're wasting their time, your time, and if you're only repeating their fears back to them, then you are not doing them any favors whatsoever. All you're doing is digging them deeper into the same hole. So without spirit, and without the messages, without opening up to your higher self, you can call it anything you like. It's the same thing. It is that greater intelligence that pervades the universe. You tune into a higher aspect of it. Brian says, surely it's all intuition. No, it's not. I'm totally convinced of that now. It's nice to think that we're all powerful, and we are all powerful because we're part of God. But that's how we get the information. We are no better than anybody else. We're just tuning into various levels of wisdom and intelligence. But it's not all intuition now. No, I could tell the difference now. How can I describe it? Right. My poetry. I think that's the best. Now, I know I've always been egocentric, but sometimes I write a poem and I will cry. I'll read it and I'll cry. Now, either I'm so totally egocentric, I just love my work to bits, or sometimes it's not just me. Sometimes, I mean, one particular poem I wrote, and a friend of mine came on in private later and said, "You've just repeated everything that I said to my a baby, the day I knew I only had her for a day, and all the things I dreamed about." Right? That's not intuition. You don't intuitively pick up a day from somebody's life from 20 years ago to help heal a scar that's been there for so long. Spirit can do that. Like I said, I write a reasonably good poet. Um, but what I write when I know not spirit's not channeling through me can be pretty good. But what I write when I'm channeling, one, it happens in a fraction of the time, and two, I'm gobsmacked when I read it. I go, wow. It's not that I'm an egomaniac. It's because I know it's not me. There's, like, because I work on so many different levels, I've had to learn to differentiate between them, and it is quite difficult. It is. I mean, it's probably why I'm not as good at channeling as Tina, because I've used so many different methods, and it does confuse things a little. But Tina, in conversations with Tina, as I said to you, she's knocked me on my ass quite a few times, particularly when I knew her first. Right, I've studied most schools of the occult. I've been in several occult groups. I've been in loads of different religions. I've studied lots of philosophies. I've studied magic. I've actually practiced it. So I'm pretty well grounded in the occult overall, right? And yet Tina, who's never had any interest in it, right, gives me the same information. And when we were together first, it used to amaze me. She'd be saying that our guides had told her this, or our guides had told her that. And it would be specific techniques and specific ideas from different philosophies that I'd read. I thought, wow. I mean, and anybody who's connected can do that. You don't have to spend 40 years as I did pouring through thousands of books and experimenting. You just open up the spirit and it's there when you need it, as you need it, in the words you can understand. All I did was learn how to add bigger words to the description, because had I just simply continued on with my connection with God as I saw him as a child, I would have carried on with the same spiritual connection, but I would have just seen it in a different way. But I would still continue to know what I needed to say to people to help them, because it would have been given to me. And so, yeah, intuition, it could be just another name for channeling spirit, to be quite honest. I mean, what's in the name? All I know is we are all connected. That if I set out to do the greatest good for everybody involved in every situation, and I ask, I'll be given the information. If I interfere with it, I will give a lesser. Um, I will give a lesser. How do you put it? Version of what I'm being told. But if I'm truly open, and if I could be as open and as clear as Tina is, the message would be much more precise, much more exact, and much more appropriate. I mean, that's why, I mean, Anne Pearson, who's, has always said, you give what you get. She's told me, 500 times over the last few years, you give what you get. You don't question it. You give what you get. And that is the answer. I mean, calling it intuition is just putting a different label on it. Calling it telepathy is putting a different name on it. Calling it reading people is putting a different name on it. Yeah, you read people. What does it tell you? It tells you person's tense. It tells you they're regarded. But the real information comes from the fact that we are all the one being sharing human experience. And that is the bottom line. We're constantly channeling. Half of the ideas we think that are ours are not ours at all. And if we want to channel negativity, we can have horrible thoughts all day long, and there's loads of resources out in the universe to give us new and unthought of horrible thoughts to add to the ones we already have. And we can carry on down that path. And we'll be allowed to carry on down that path until we are tired of suffering. And when we're eventually tired of suffering, go, oh, maybe I shouldn't be doing this anymore. And we change the ways we begin to evolve. We were evolving while we thought we were going down. It's just part of the overall path. But I think I've said enough for the moment. I can see Tina there smiling. She's used to me though.
Okay. So hold on a second. Okay. Yes, one of the things that Diane said, and it works with what you were saying, is labels. Some people like to put labels on things, and some people just. And yes, Brian, you everybody does work in different ways, and that's because if we were, it's like, you know, everybody can't be the same. Everybody has to be different. Otherwise, life would be boring. Could you imagine? Could you imagine a world full of me's, Brian? You know, or a world full of Brians. That's scary. But see, so sweet, loves me dearly, does. But everybody has their own way of working, you know.
Yeah.
And what Patrick's way, or Tina's way, or my way, or your way, it's each of us has our own way. We still, in the end, connect to the same source, whatever you want to call it, you know. And you know, it's what makes us, and it's what makes us interesting to ourselves as well as others. And how many times, Brian, have you sort of gone, oh my God, did that come from me? And remember the time you were telling me the story about the bells? You know, you knew you could do it, but when you did it, you still kind of sort of went, did I do that? So you're still questioning yourself, but you're still doing it. You know, you're still learning from it. It's like I find the label of telling people, saying, are you a psychic? Are you a medium? Are you a whatever? I don't, you know, if for me, I have to sit there and say, you know what? If you want to put me as a label, you want to put a label on me, I'm a healer. Because yes, I'm a Reiki master and I do healing that way. But I also believe that when spirit passes your message on, whether it's through a medium or a psychic, you're still healing somebody. You're giving them something that makes them less anxious, feeling a little bit better, or gives them a focus of where they should work. So I still think that that's a form of healing. So that's if you want to put a label on people, I think this world is like, aside from unicorns and butterflies and rainbows, we're all healers in one form or another.
Yeah.
How's that? Okay, Brian? I know you don't want a world full of me's. I get it. But I know you love me. You have no choice, darling. Okay. I lost the train of thought, thinking of a world full of me's. Oh, Lordy. All right. One of the questions, and Brian says, I'm not special. I'm still learning. It took me years to get out of that label thing. But Brian, I beg to differ. You are special. in a good way. Not the window licking the bus window licking kind, but you are special. That's what they used to tease me, man. Oh my gosh. But I think everybody is special and everybody is an individual. So I still, you know, like I said, for me, it's the idea of putting a label. Some people need labels. You know, if Eric Glynn was here, he would agree. He was doing something one, and it's just Eric Glynn and Team Teddy, and he works with his guide, and he's a medium, and but one time he went to work with somebody, or he was doing a show or somebody, and they put a label on him, which I swear to God, if you typed it out, it would have been this long, and I teased him about it. I said, "How long is your label today?" You know, everybody has a label in one. Don't lie. Don't be picking on my little Eric when he's not here to defend himself, because you know he'd defend himself, right? Or Teddy would. Some people need the label to help them guide themselves. you know, and it's
I
not,
think I think we.
go ahead.
Mm.
Go ahead, Tina, you were saying?
I think we all start with a label, and I think we all have that label because we all think it comes back to the ego, and that's how I strongly think it is. When we first start and we all realise we have a gift, um, we still have lessons to learn, and I feel that we go through the ego process, and we realise spirit puts us flat on our backsides, and then when we pick ourselves up and we lose that ego, and we just be who we are and what we are, and that's how I see it, from my point of view. I think Pat has a different. I don't know if Pat has a different thing to that, but um, I think we all have to go through that ego to learn. You know, that's how I see it, and that's why I class it as labels.
Yeah. Well, I think throughout our lives, we're labeled.
Yeah,
You know, whether you when a child is born, the first label that's put on us is either boy or girl, male or female. You know, when you go to when you get chosen, and when you're chosen, when your parents or your community chooses the label to give you in the way of religion, what you're going to study, what you're going to get your foundation on, it's still a label. Oh, I'm Catholic. That's a label. You know,
yeah,
we don't realize the labels that we put on ourselves. It's part of who we are. We just have to, for me, I'm, I'm a pain in Brian's side. That's a label. I like that label. It just depends on the labels that you use and how you accept them and how you accept them or not live up to them. And I do think I do live up to that label very well. It's like being at school. We have different subjects. Exactly. You have different subjects. You have different, everybody has to learn, each one. Yes, I know you love me. You have no choice. Otherwise, Pauline would hit you. But no, I think labels are good in some respects. Again, yes, she would hit you again. She'd throw something at you. I'd see a slipper flying across the screen. Oh goodness. Um, in some respects, we need labels. We do have to. It sort of helps us to focus in which way we're going. But it depends on what you do, how far you take the label.
Mhm.
Whether it's, like I said, whether it's being a Catholic, being a Jew, being a Buddhist, those are all labels. But if you look at it, like Patrick says, if you look at it, each one is a different, but it all connects to the same. It all connects. Excuse me. It all connects to source, or your higher self, or God, or whatever you want to call it. It doesn't matter. For me, everybody's on a different path, but we're all going to get to the same place eventually. You know, and some of us will be in a hotter place. Brian, and I'll be there with you. Um, but it just depends on how you accept your label, whether you accept the label that you put on yourself, or whether you accept the label other people put on you. That's Mama's 2 cents.
Mhm.
And Patrick looks like he's been biting his tongue or falling asleep. Hopefully he's biting his tongue. Okay, he moved. He's not asleep yet. No, it's
He
just
won't
that
be
look.
asleep.
No, I know. You? I have the feeling that about 20 minutes after we're off the air, you'd be like, it's okay.
If she
It's
lasts
still
long.
early for me here. All right. I would like to, before we continue on, just one thing. I am in the future. I would like to have a reading show. I don't usually focus on just readings, but I would like to have just a reading show. I would like to invite the both of you back at that time. I haven't decided on when it is. I'm booked up until August, so it ain't anytime soon. So, and we'll make sure that it's a day, if you want to join, that it's a day that you don't have to work the next day.
Yes. Good idea.
Yeah, because I'm not
Okay.
gonna keep you awake for you know. Yes, I'd like to keep you awake and have conversations with you, because I have a feeling that you have there's so much depth to you, but I also know that we do have lives, and some people don't get that we do have lives, and we do have people to deal with and jobs to deal with. This is not everything to everybody. So one day in the future, you're going to let me in, let's say September, maybe October. Let me know if you have a Monday off. we'll book a reading show
I
because I
have.
would. Good.
I have Monday off.
There you go. Because I would love for you guys to meet. Well, Brian, you're now that I have the show at this time of the day, you're up. When I had the show early in the day, I used to have to want to send the sledgehammer to pop out of the alarm clock to wake you up. But we figured that one out because Brian's in Australia. He's what did he's a transplant. I'm not sure why they transplanted him all the way down to Australia to torture the poor people down there. It's not like they did anything wrong. I'm kidding. Because I would love for you guys to meet Eric and his guy Teddy. Very interesting couple of guys, and Scott. So what I think I might try and do is have that show that it's a little earlier in the day, because I would for my UK family, you got to be night owls to stay up this late. Yeah. But not everybody's an insomniac like Patrick. Because trust me, when 11 o'clock hits the world, I'm just like, okay, leave me alone. So I'm maybe I'll talk to my creator of this awesome site and ask her if I can have an extra show and do it during the day on a Saturday or something. We'll see. We'll see. Life's coming, but just it's putting it out there, people. Anybody who's listening, keep checking back at Angel Meadows Radio on Facebook, and you'll know that when we have an all reading show, y'all best be here before I kick some booties. Okay, so we're not going yet. I get a quick one. Is there anything that you haven't done that you want to do and you're looking forward to getting there? Oh, all right. Night, Diane. Bye, Diane. Have a good day. Night. It's just morning.
Bye.
Is there anything that
Bye-bye.
you want to do you've always wanted to do it, and this is what you're going to do? There's that one moment, that one thing that you're just like, uh-oh, Patrick's thinking. You want your beard.
There is one thing, I suppose, that is on my bucket list. I know we've just made plans together for the next probably 2 years or so, but I'm sure Pat will tell you that. But one of mine is actually to embrace my shamanism, and get more. I'd like to go into the Amazon and get taught by a proper shaman, because I have got an actual Native American who is one of my guides. But I would like to get more into my shamanism in my healing practices, and I would like to learn more about the ayahuasca and that sort of principle in my healing work. That's something that is a dream, but I would love that. That is something, on my bucket list.
Patrick, what's on your bucket list?
Oh.
Uh-oh.
I just think it goes well.
Shoot. My bucket list? Hold on a sec. All right, keep going. Ignore the old woman.
Oh yeah, that sounds interesting. Yeah, levitation, really, really good. Yeah, that's me.
Back. Sorry,
No,
I missed it.
I can't think of anything at the moment.
I mean, we have got plans together that we've actually just been doing. We've been talking about doing together. About for the next coming up for the next 2 years or so is to live by minimal means. We both are looking at maybe getting a bus and touring all the British Isles and Northern Ireland and Ireland, and just living in a bus. But this is something that we've both want to do, and this is what we're sending out to the universe right now is to embrace that, and see where it leads us. So this is something that's in our pipeline for the pair of us together, and I think it will come to tuition, but we'll have to see what spirit wants us to do. So because we already have a camper that we've converted. It's a van, a Vauxhall Vero van, and we've actually converted that, and we into a little mobile home with a bed and this sort of thing. And this is when we're most in touch with each other. We just love being outside and living by that limited means. We just love that. So so we need to get it a bit more bigger.
When I was a kid, I had a friend who they bought at a school bus up here. It's this big yellow thing, and they painted it a baby blue, and on the side they drew a Pink Panther on one side and a Mickey Mouse on the other side, because they were known as, that was their names, that they were known as in our circle of family, was Mickey and the Pink Panther. And they had made it so that they could put their motorcycles in the back. They refurbished the whole things, and they traveled across, well, for us, it was just across Canada, and they had a great time. So yeah, that's something. And now that there's a, I have to find a picture. I'll show it to you one day. I think it would fit the two of you perfectly to design on your on a we'll say it's a caravan. It's an old truck that this couple redid, and they made it into a camper, and it's actually gorgeous. I like it because it's got butterflies all over it. So so I took pictures of it. But I'll send you the pictures. They're interesting. But yeah, I think I like that idea.
Yeah,
Well,
I must.
go ahead.
I said I must admit that's been on my bucket list for many, many years, and I only recently discovered that Tina was interested as well. And I mean, we started off. We would go to festivals in my Picasso with a tent, and I don't do tents. I ended up sleeping in the car. So we bought a Vivaro van, and then on top of the van I had a gazebo which I rigged up to attach to it. And there are some fascinating stories I could tell you about that. I could see Tina go, no, 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 no. I mean, the last year we used it because it's was the last year we ever used it. We had everything laid out. We had tables and chairs and everything in there, and it rained and rained and rained. And I got up in the morning, and the ceiling was about 2 foot from the floor. And I thought, oh my God, what am I going to do? Yeah. And Tina comes out of the van naked, grabs it, and just pushes this huge ball of water off the gazebo. And so we tidied everything up, and we went off to do a workshop we were doing, I think, wasn't it, Tina? And we come back, and the wind had blown it inside out, and I thought, oh, this is ridiculous. So the next event we did, Tina said, well, the gazebo was pretty wrecked. And she said, we can manage in the van. I thought, no, there's not enough space. But I tried it, and actually I found it was better, because I found that we could do our workshops, go back to the van. Tina cooked in the van, and we settled down, went to bed. It was a horrendous weather. It was a storm brewing, and It was so snug in the van, and of course you were totally protected from the rain and the wind. And we've been doing it ever since. We just go off with the van. We have a bed in the back. We have a little cupboard with all our food. I took out the panel between the front seats and the back, which is much better. And we just drive off when, like when we just want time on our own, we just drive off and park up somewhere and just sit and chill. It's great. Or we just lay in the bed in the back looking out the side windows. It's just it's just so relaxing. And it was my dream to tour around England or Ireland when I retired. But I was thinking, oh well, I need so many 100,000 in the bank. I'd need to have this. I'd need to have that. And slowly over the years with Tina, I'm beginning to realize, no, I need diesel in the van. I need somewhere to sleep. I need something to cook on. I need a water supply, and that's it. And so our plan is to go one bigger. The poor old Navaro has quite a lot of mileage on it, and we are planning to look around for a bus to convert over the next 2 years. And when it does, we will hopefully just take a year off and work our way around the British Isles. Just drive to a place, go and do a few weeks agency work if we're a bit short of cash, and then carry on doing it. So we don't need a couple of years' wages in the bank. We just need a couple of months' wages in the bank and a little emergency fund for the van, and just go. Just trust ourselves. Spirits never let us down.
Exactly.
I mean, a couple of years ago, I needed £10,000 to sort some situations out, and I said, "Oh God, I've only had £10,000. I can sort this out." A week later, my son-in-law hands me a letter from my old house in London, which I sold to my daughter. He says, "Oh," he said, "this is in the post for you." He said, "I forgot." It was, like it was basically access to £10,000.
There we
Without
go.
going into all the detail. And Spirit's always been like that. Well, and again, it's come through different names. When I was writing the fairy book, the van died on me. I was working agency at the time, and I phoned them up and said, "I can't come in. My van's died." "Well, when can you come in? If you can't come in tomorrow, I'm sorry, I'll have to give you a job. You're a job to somebody else. We just have to get somebody else." Oh my God! So the garage phoned me and said, "Well, I'm really sorry." Said, "But it's a dual mass clutch. It'll cost £1,000, which I didn't have, and it'll take 2 weeks to come." I'm thinking, oh my God. So I've got no van, no way of paying to have it fixed, no job, which means I've got no way to make up the money to get the van fixed. And at the time, I just finished the book of the fairies, and I'd had some amazing experiences with them, but we've sort of run out of time on that. But I said to him, I said, "You know what?" I said, "All I've done," I said, "all the stuff I've channeled and written down for you," I said, "and you just let me fall flat on my face. I'm not very happy with you." And I just fell asleep on the sofa. We were just exhausted, and we couldn't find anybody to loan us a vehicle. I thought, I'm stuffed. I woke up and straight to the kettle. That's me. I'm on my way through to make a cup of tea. The phone rang. Picked up the phone. "It's the garage here. Your van's ready. Your van is ready, and it'll be £250 or 100. I think it was only £250. So I borrowed a couple of quid from Tina's dad to make up the money because I could afford that. And obviously, I phoned him up, said, "I'll see you in the morning," and I had my job back. But I'd already put the phone down, and Tina's mum came to the door because she lived across the road from us at the time. And she says, "I have a present for you and Tina." And it was from a friend of hers, and it was a picture. You know the Cottingley Fairies picture? The two little girls leaning over, you've got all the little fairies around them.
Mm-hmm.
It was similar to that. It was one from a photographer who had done it in the 1930s, or somebody, and it was still in this person's possession. And he thought it'd be a nice present for us. Obviously, he knew I was right about the fairies and all that. And that arrived at the door just after the phone call. So again, I mean, Spirit doesn't care what you call them, what you think they are, but they always help. And I think it'd be nice just to take that time, travel around the country, and actually trust in Spirit, and just finally take that step off the limb Yeah, but like I said, it'll take us a year or two. But anyway, that's my
Ryan,
plan.
give her my love, please. I have a quick question. I was told to ask you this. Um, how did you meet Bill?
Sorry. Oh, Bill. Ah,
Yeah,
Spirit.
and just in case everybody, Bill is, if you follow, which you will be following, Patrick W. Kavanaugh, his writings. That's Patrick's writings. He always has beautiful pictures that go with it. So Bill is the artist who does. If there's photos taken, I believe Tina does the photos, but Bill is the artist. So and he's told me to ask you to tell me how you two met.
Spirit. There's a friend of ours, Eileen Ackrill, who I mentioned to you earlier. She was the one who said I should use more than one deck of cards for readings, and she gave me quite an amazing reading. Um, and we became friends. I gave her a reading then because she was having a health problems, and then one day she messaged me and she said, "You need to go and see this guy. Look at this guy's page, Bill Oliver. He writes about the fairies, and he does fairy art, and he wants somebody to write for him." Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah, I've no intention of doing it. Well, she badgered me and badgered me until eventually I went onto this guy's page, and I really loved his art. So I said, right, I said, I'll send you a poem, and you send me. I wrote a poem for this picture, and he liked it. He says, right, we'll agree. I'd send him a poem, and he'd send me a picture, and we'd write for them, and we'd try that a couple of times to see if we could work together. So I sent him a poem, and he sent me a picture, and they already matched. The poem I sent him matched the picture that arrived in his email. So I thought, well, we try that again, and the same thing happened. We tried it again, the same thing happened. So we started from the muse, and shortly afterwards, he, he has done quite a few magazine covers for Fate magazine, which is owned by Phyllis Gald and Gald Press. And she said, "Would you two guys like to write a fairy book for me? I love your stuff." So we wrote the Fairy Realms. But unfortunately, in between that, her partner passed away, and she had trouble with staff, and the book just hasn't happened. It's been coming up to 4 years now, and still hasn't been completed. But it will in time. But yeah, it was Spirit. I mean, I did not want to. I thought I wasn't interested in writing about the fairies at that stage. It was rather strange because again, it was Tina actually got me back involved with the fairies. She dragged me off to a drumming workshop in Caborn Parver in the Lincolnshire Wolds, and I was taking a tittle. I'm a total cynic. That's and he said, "Well, I want you to walk a labyrinth." Now, I'm sure you know where the medieval labyrinth was. It was like the circular path that goes in and back out. And he said, "You may get a gift." So the other people stood around drumming in a circle around. It was my turn. I got about a third of the way in, and I heard one word in my ear, but it wasn't in my head. It was definitely outside my head. She said, "Laughter." As I said, I was grieving quite badly still at that stage. I wasn't handling it very well. And next morning, I wake up and I smashed a porcelain bowl belonged to my wife's grandmother. A bit of a family heirloom. Now, normally that would have thrown me into fits of anger or self pity. It seemed the funniest thing that ever happened. And that carried on for about 6 or 8 weeks, and it broke the mindset I was in. Just everything seemed hilarious, no matter how bad it was. Just seemed hilarious, and it was that's when the fairies came back into my life. And then, as I said, Eileen Ackrill came and said, "Would you write? Go and see this guy. You're a mental worker." I thought, yeah, I'm not doing bloody fairy poems. As you know, I've probably written about 1,000 since then. But yeah, that's it.
No, it was very interesting. Well, we have just thank you, Cheryl. Night, sweetie. Have a good one. We have come to the end of our show. So I must thank you very much. Thank you, everybody who is in the chat room. Carrie, Cheryl, Gemini, my guest, Jackie, Joan, Patrick, and Tina, because they have no choice because they said yes, they'd be on the show. And everybody who was here, thank you very, very much. This was a blast. I had a great time. And like I said, we will do a reading show in the near future. But anybody wants to get a hold of you guys, please look up, and if you're not in the chat room, you're not going to get it, but look up Patrick Kavanaugh and Tina Kavanaugh. Look them up on Facebook. If you can't figure out who they are or where they are, send me a message and I'll give you a link to get a hold of them. Thank you, Patrick. Thank you, Tina. It's been a blast.
Thank you very much. Sorry for my being so quiet.
Okay. Yeah, sure. Love you.
Bye.
I'll talk to you guys soon. Night, everybody.